All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the broadcast, a special Christmas celebratory broadcast here on MCJ Report. I hope that everybody's doing well. Why don't you go ahead and share the broadcast? Just wanted to jump on. And for those of you watching, my first question to you is, what are you doing on Facebook today? It's meant to be Christmas, but nonetheless, I hope that everybody is enjoying yourselves. So no matter where you tuned in from, why don't you go ahead and share the broadcast. And I'm just going to read through a few comments here. And I really just wanted to jump on to wish everybody my best wishes. Of course, Christmas being such a nice day of the year. I hope that everybody is doing well, having an opportunity to relax, to maybe focus on the things that are important in life, right? Friends, family, relationships, many of which I know has been under major stress, of course, throughout the past 3 years due to all the government policy in relation to this debacle that has been cast down upon us by the powers to be. Maybe you've experienced that yourself. Put in the comments, actually, matter of fact, if you have potentially lost some connections, relationships, friends and family, and if this year you are having a somewhat of a different Christmas as opposed to other years. I think probably a lot of us fall into that category. But nonetheless, I want to wish everyone a really, really Merry Christmas, and to also come with a message of hope. Maybe some people thought that 2023 was not the best year, and I suppose in a few aspects perhaps it was not, given the outcome of our election here in Victoria. But guess what, guys? Every year is a new opportunity to do something bigger, bolder, to dig our heels in, and to ultimately come out on top. You know, if there's one thing that I'm not willing to ever give up faith and hope in, it's we the people. That's right, we the people of Victoria and our country. You know that we've got what it takes, and sometimes in life, things may just have to get a little bit worse before they can get better. So I'm pretty excited for what lays ahead. And the truth is, we don't know what 2023 has in store for us. So my very firm opinion and advice is that we should just be willing to accept whatever comes our way, take it on the chin, unite, okay? If there's one thing a sinister government does not like, if there's one thing a sinister government does not want at any cost, it's when people are able to, everyday people I should say, are able to put their differences aside, to unite and to get together to combat for a common cause. So I'm certainly looking forward to uniting and connecting with a lot more of you coming into 2023. So Let me just open up the comments here. I can see Catherine there saying Merry Christmas, Yvonne, and there is Tammy Jane. How you going? A big shout out to the wonderful Tammy Jane for all the hard work that you've put in over the past few years, of course, getting the truth out there. There's Debbie there having a good time in the comments. Glad that you could join us here, Debbie. There's Linda. Linda saying Merry Christmas. Great to have you on board as always, Linda. I really appreciate you being here. Kevin. Paul says, what are you doing on Facebook? I'm sending a Merry Christmas to my amazing extended family throughout the world of Facebook and social media. That's right. So not just Facebook, but live on 3 other platforms right now. And for sure, it was important for me to just jump on to wish everybody Merry Christmas. There's Andrew Philippopoulos, our man, the myth, the legend, our candidate for Mill Park, who achieved the highest primary vote in Freedom Party of Victoria. So give it up for Andrew. And Andrew Philippopoulos smashed the Greens. That's right. He worked his tail off. He smashed the Greens. And so moving forward next year and the years to come, I'll certainly be hoping for our man Andrew to play a key role training up other candidates. Because let me say, Andrew, if you're able to actually pass your knowledge and capabilities on to other members of the team, then we will be a true fighting force that will not ever be ignored, ever. There's Diane there. How you going? There's Judy B. How you going, Judy B? Tammy says that you love the backdrop. What do you guys think of the backdrop? Give it a rating out of 10. 10 being you love it, 9 being it's great, 6, 5, 4, maybe you think it's a little bit corny or something like that. You know, you can actually find these looping backgrounds on the internet. I've got a subscription to a service called Storyblocks. So as many of you have probably figured out, it's not a real background. I've got my green screen, I've got my studio lights, and that's the cool thing. You can be anywhere in the world from the comfort of your own home. You know, for instance, it could be a different background. It could be you could be at a farm, right? You could be in a high-rise building in Melbourne, or you could be celebrating Christmas in front of a fireplace. The beauty of the green screen. Rex says lamb kebab. So what are you guys up to today? Put in the comments. How are you celebrating Christmas? What are you doing? Let me know, because I'm very interested in what you guys are doing. And there's Georgina there saying Merry Humbug. Not really sure what that means. Catherine says that you like it, giving the background a 10 out of 10 score. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Tammy giving it an 8, just missing out there on full digits. Nick says 10 because I'm in it. Nick, you're a good man. Labrini says 10. Steven says 100%. Debbie says 10. Jennifer says it's very middle America. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I can see where you're coming from. Definitely adding that American flavor onto it. Paul says that you're having a Corona. Rex says, where's my beer? Well, I'm waiting for someone to bring me one, but I've been waiting all day. No, I'm joking. I might have one later. For now, I've got a coffee, which I know isn't very fun. But tell you what, I did something really cool the other day. Who here has heard of Mount Bogong? Raise your hands if you've heard of Mount Bogong. So, Mount Bogong, and I feel weird for saying Mount Bogong so many times, but I'm just going to ignore that and keep talking, is the tallest peak in Victoria, right? So, it's nearly 2,000 meters above sea level, located in the northeastern region of Victoria in our Alpine National Park. Great hike. It's a very challenging hike. It's about 8 hours return. So, you know, starting from base camp up to the summit and making your way back is about 8 hours. Maybe a bit less if your fitness happens to be better than mine, which a lot of people are fitter than me, so that's probably not out of the question, or a bit longer if you're struggling in the fitness department. So, really great hike. I did it last week, and afterwards we swam in a rock pool. That's right, it was an ice cold rock pool, and I don't know if any of you have been swimming in ice cold water before, but I can tell you it's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. So, highly recommended this summer. Find an ice cold rock pool, preferably embark on a big hike ahead of time, and it's like therapy. It's like some sort of natural medicine that wakes you up. It tends to heal small injuries and things like that. And here's the great thing. You do not need approval from the Therapeutic Goods Administration to go swimming in an ice cold rock pool. So go out and do it. But at the end of the day, I don't think anybody watching this broadcast is waiting for the Therapeutic Goods Administration to approve anything, right? Because there seems to be a lack of desire to comply with certain bureaucracies. And I think we're all on the same page, right? And if there's one thing we're not going to do in 2023 is we're not going to comply with ridiculous government policies. Who here agrees with that? If you do, raise your hand. There's Anna there saying, love from Japan. Oh, you're in Japan. What are you doing over there? Nice country. I don't think they ever locked down or imposed mandates in Japan, did they? Let's see. There's Jose Ricardo saying, Merry Christmas. The fight keeps going. That's right. The fight keeps going. And you know what they say in life, right? It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. The destination you only enjoy for a very limited time. The bulk of time spent in our lives is on the journey. So enjoy the journey by whatever means necessary. It's kind of like hiking to the top of a mountain. You enjoy the summit, the destination, for a very limited amount of time. But the vast majority of time you're hiking, you're expending energy, and you're enjoying that challenging experience, right? Because you can choose to enjoy these types of experiences rather than to suffer through them. So there you go. A little analogy. Basically, life is just hiking up a mountain. You just need to keep going. Let's see. There's Sharon there saying, someone took a pesky test. I don't know who would do that. Probably nobody watching this broadcast right now. I'm just scrolling down. There's Margaret sending hugs and love right back at you. There's Rhonda there saying Merry Christmas from Ontario, Canada. And Anna said that in Japan they never had a lockdown. That's right. So yeah. It's definitely what you want, right? Lockdowns, right? Well, at the end of the day, all our government was doing was responding to the science, okay? So never forget that. Never forget the government was just responding to the quote science and quote health advice. I wonder what science and health advice we'll be seeing in 2023. I wonder if there'll be more lockdowns in 2023. Who here heard about the local council over in the UK that is imposing a climate change lockdown type of operation? Do you think we'll see that here in Victoria? If so, will you comply? Actually, you know what? Don't put your answer to that in the comments. Keep it a secret. Keep them on their toes. But there's definitely no shortage of issues and content matter to be addressed. So for that reason, MCJ report will be returning next year. So in January, the first month of 2023. Now, as many of you may be aware, MCJ report has not been a regular broadcast for about 12 months now. That's right, 12 whole months, because of course it was roughly 12 months ago that I threw my head in the ring for the federal election, and I've basically dedicated the past 12 months to campaigning and entering this political space. But of course that was at the expense of my independent news broadcasting show, MCJ Report, which I used to broadcast 4 nights a week without fail. Who here remembers that? MCJ Report 4 nights a week, 8 p.m. Monday to Thursday. So I'm not sure if broadcasting 4 nights a week is optimal or not, but I will be choosing a set schedule and returning the show in January. So you can look forward to the MCJ reports that you grew to love, or hopefully grew to love. Maybe. I think so. I think people like it. And that will be coming back in January. So anything that you think should be mentioned on MCJ Report, the best thing you can do is sign up to the MCJ Report newsletter. So you go to mcjreport.com, sign up to the newsletter, and when you receive correspondence from MCJ Report, you can respond with topics that you think should be covered on the show. So, I guess unfortunately, here in Australia, our government just keeps putting their foot in it. So as long as the government puts their foot in it, we're going to have plenty of subject matter that needs to be discussed. Anna says you invited me to Japan. Well, I'd love to go to Japan. That would be fantastic. And I like the Japanese culture. I like the Japanese people. I've always been very fascinated by that particular country, their history. And I was reading about Japan in the news the other day. It looks like the president has made some drastic changes to Japan's military spending in their budget. So recognizing the very serious impending threat China poses to the sovereignty of Japan. Of course, we've seen the Chinese Air Force and Naval really entering sovereign Japanese territory, or if not entering, bordering on the airspace around Japan and Japanese islands. So most of you are probably aware that since World War II, Japan effectively signed a binding international agreement not to raise an offensive military force. So Japan has been somewhat constrained since the end of World War II, of course, building what would largely be described as a defensive military force. But what we see now is Japan, as I mentioned, increasing their military budget and funding weapons programs that would most likely fall into the category of offensive as opposed to defensive. Now, there's a very strong case for the implementation of such offensive equipment not being a contradiction of the Japanese constitution, because a very valid form of defense for a country is to preemptively strike an impending threat. Okay, so there very well may be a situation where Japan needs to fire the first missile, fire the first shot, etc. In the event of an overly hostile, encroaching China, and if that happens, there could be a very real war in that region involving Japan allied with America. You've got China now, of course, developing some further ties with Russia, more so out of a common enemy rather than commonalities between those two nations. And the question is, where does Australia land in all this? Taiwan facing major threats to its sovereignty. Most people probably agree it's just a matter of time before China puts boots on the ground in Taiwan. And again, where does that leave Australia? Where does that leave Australia? We don't have a great deal in terms of military personnel in this country. And I mean, you look at the hardware and military funding that our government has sent over to Ukraine, and it makes you very frustrated, doesn't it? Especially when that's at the expense of bolstering our own military capabilities. Anyway, that's just a little MCJ rant, a little geopolitical rant. So you can expect that we'll start covering both national and international politics again. That's really what MCJ Report was founded on. And don't worry, we won't be forgetting about the local weasel, otherwise known as Dan Andrews. And I received a Christmas present. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Check it out. I received this from a friend of mine, Dan Andrews. The revealing biography of Australia's most powerful premier. I probably disagree with the subtitle there. I mean, people like Dan Andrews are only as powerful as what the people allow him to be. You know, I confronted this man one-on-one, and I can tell you that when he's one-on-one, he's not very powerful at all. Actually, he's very weak and cowardly and won't even look at you and just gets all disorientated. Tammy says, burn it. No, I want to read it. It's a biography, and if there's one thing you should do in life, and I'm pretty sure I'm quoting Sun Tzu here, the great Chinese military mind, and that is that in war, you should know your enemy better than you know yourself. All right? You're not going to have a particularly good time learning about all the intricate aspects of the enemy, but you know, whether it's a sporting competition, you want to know your opponent better than you know yourself. A war, politics, people versus an oppressive system. You want to understand the intricacies of that system, who they are, what makes them tick, why they're able to hold on to power, all that sort of stuff. So there you go. Natalie says China in Focus. China in Focus is a really good online media outlet discussing all matters related to China. I'm fairly certain it falls under the banner of the Epoch Times. Who here knows the Epoch Times? I like that news publication. So it's actually been on my mind a lot to reach out to them to see if maybe MCJ Report can collaborate with the Epoch Times. They've interviewed me a bunch of times, and they have been, without any doubt, the most friendly mainstream media to me over the years. And they've always shown an interest in my activities, whether I was protesting Dan Andrews, China, or matters relating to the tyranny during lockdowns. The Epoch Times have always been objective, fair, and have never, say, mislabeled me or people who are associated with me. Debbie says use the book for toilet paper. Thanks, Debbie. I'll take your advice on notice. How about that? Andrew says, did anyone see his eyes on election night? Yeah, he looked very similar to the 2018 election night, and I can definitely say there's something very obscene and not right about Daniel Andrews. It's hard to put your finger on it, but how can one human being supposedly lack complete empathy? You look at the destruction that has occurred in Victoria as a direct result of effectively one person's decisions, and you ask yourself, how can this man sleep at night? How can he look other people in the eyes knowing what he is responsible for? Unless, of course, he genuinely believes that he is not guilty of anything, right? Either that's scenario A. Scenario B is the man's just a straight out psychopath and is incapable of feeling any real empathy or compassion for fellow human beings. So what do you think it is? Do you think A, Daniel Andrews thinks he just did what needed to be done, right? He said in his speech, it's about doing what matters, not what's popular. Or is the man just a straight out psychopath and is somebody who is completely unhinged and unfit? His victory speech was disturbing, yeah. Who here saw the victory speech? Daniel Andrews gets on stage and says, the vaccines work. The vaccines work, and everyone starts clapping like, yeah, the vaccines work. I mean, if that wasn't a dig at us, then I don't know what was. I think that he was rattled. He even made statements such as, hope has defeated hate. Now, who do you think Daniel Andrews was referring to when he said the word hate? Now, it is such a typical sociopathic trait for abusive sociopathic people to accuse their victims of what they themselves are guilty of. That's right. That is called Class A manipulation, right? You're dealing with a manipulator in the workplace, and they accuse you of dragging your feet. They accuse you of being selfish or hateful, whereas they are the ones that exhibit those exact traits. And that is exactly what we saw from Daniel Andrews. Now, this whole hope defeated hate, and Daniel Andrews claiming that there were Nazi-affiliated political parties in the field, we know without any shadow of a doubt that he was wrongly, of course, referring to Freedom Party of Victoria. Now, Daniel Andrews would never utter my name or the Freedom Party name because he thinks that would belittle him. In Daniel Andrews' opinion, if he mentions us, he breathes legitimacy into our entity. Now, that's something that he will never do. But we know for a fact that he was talking about us when he used those words hateful and Nazis, which, of course, is disgusting and defamatory, because Labor put us dead last on their how to vote cards. So Daniel Andrews and Labor, they knew damn well who we were, and they went out of their way to put us dead last everywhere, even below their arch nemesis, the Liberal Party. So I mean, it would. I think we still need clarification, right? Daniel Andrews, who were you referring to when you spoke about these alleged Nazis? I mean, just disgusting language. We want to talk about Nazism. Look at what Daniel Andrews has been involved in over the past 3 years. 3 years. I mean, forcing people to take drugs, choosing between their livelihoods or taking a provisionally approved substance. I mean, that one event alone, let alone the blatant tyranny on the streets by Victoria Police. We had people with their skulls cracked open, covered in a pool of their own blood. Scenes reminiscent of Nazi Germany, and Daniel Andrews sat on the top of that. And so I suppose what bothers me the most after this election cycle is, when are these people going to be held to account? We've got some good people who have been elected to the upper house, right? We've got Ricky Lee, we've got Renee Heath in the Eastern region, she's good. Anne-Marie Herman, of course, David Limbrick was re-elected. So we hope that as a combination of these people, Adam Somyurak as well, so we'll see how he goes. We really need there to be a constant light that is shining on these industrial scale human rights abuses that took place in Victoria over the past 2 years. And this is the type of terminology that needs to be used. You know, I'm kind of sick of seeing these politicians dancing around the issues. Now let's talk about the COVID response. Let's get one thing straight. What we saw was not a response to anything. It was a straight out industrial scale assault on the people. It was straight out assault. It was brutality. It was not a COVID response. It was, I would say, the biggest crime committed against the people in living memory. Yeah. Glenn Drury said that Freedom Party was a bit of a worry. Well, that's because we never played ball with him. So, you know, Glenn wants to be able to control whatever portion of the vote that any micro party is able to attain in any given election. So even if Glenn Drury is deprived of, say, 1% of the vote due to a small party not playing ball, that is potentially enough to disrupt his entire modus operandi. So obviously it was a very divisive issue during the election. We took a very hardline stance on the whole Glenn Drury preference deals for cash. Some people think that it is permissible. Some people think it's okay to enter into these preference agreements and then to pay Glenn Drury afterwards from the sort of administration fund. In other words, taxpayer dollars. Some people think it's okay to do that. I certainly, for the life of me, can't understand how that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars. I mean, I think that's a misappropriation at best, at worst, some sort of form of political bribery. What do you think? Put your thoughts in the comments. But we've got a great election coming up in Narrabeen, right? So for those of you who may be unaware, it's really sad. It's really sad what happened. The candidate for the Nationals committed suicide during the Narrabeen election. So Narrabeen is a lower house district located in Eastern region in the Gippsland region here in Victoria. So very sad the candidate committed suicide. But what that triggered was the suspension of that particular lower house district election to be held at a later date. Now, the election's been called and Narrabeen will be held on January 28th. Now, this is a really vital election because a few reasons. Reason number one, Labor is incredibly weak in Narrabeen and they're all but destroyed. The Liberals have been backed into a corner because their long-time incumbent member has retired and a new guy has come in, which always makes things more difficult. It's also up in the air whether or not the Nationals will run another candidate. But you know who is going down really well in Narrabeen, and that is, of course, the Freedom Party of Victoria candidate, Leonie Blackwell. Leonie is the perfect person for this job. She is a true local. She was born and bred in the district of Narracan. She has devoted the past 40 years of her life to serving her community in a variety of different ways. She's a small business owner, so she gets the struggles of small business. And one of the aspects I love the most is that she is a naturopath. So she understands natural health. She's not scared to call out the misgivings of Big Pharma. And if you ask me, we need more naturopaths in Parliament. But of course, coupled with everything else, she's a caring person, community focused, demonstrates strong leadership, and the community throughout Narracan are getting behind Leonie in a major way. So I encourage you to support Leonie. In fact, head on over to leonieblackwell.com.au and become a volunteer. And let's descend on the district of Narracan during January, and let's get one of our own elected. There could not be a better person for the job. Anyway, that was my little speech for Leonie there. Leonie, if you're listening, love your work. And we got to make it happen for Leonie, guys. Oh, yes, if you're from Newcastle and you're in Brisbane. Oh, yeah, another thing. February, I'm going to New South Wales and Queensland. I was going to go in January, but then, of course, the election was called. So, if you would like to catch up with me, you are more than welcome to. I'm just going to put the link in the comments. Let's see. I'm just going to get the form for you because I've been cooped up in Victoria. I've been like a slave to the election process. So I'm just opening the form now. All right. I'm putting it in the comments as we speak. All right, I've put it in the comments. So, feel free to fill out that form if you're from New South Wales or Queensland. And it just is going to help me to work out where you are all from. And I will make my way to New South Wales and Queensland in February. And MCJ report will come back on a set schedule from next month. Anyway, that's probably about it for now. Let's all get behind Leonie. Let's get one of our own elected. Honestly, she's our strongest candidate. She deserves it. She's given her time and efforts for 4 decades in her district. And it would be an incredible win for the people. And due to the weak nature of both Labor and Liberal in the area and the massive support Leonie has, she's in with such a big chance. Let's make it happen for her. All right. Anyway, just wanted to say Merry Christmas. Thank you, everyone, for the support that you've shown me and the team for years now. Yes, it's actually been years. And I can't wait for the next chapter. I can't wait for you to be involved in the next chapter. And let's just get in there and keep throwing punches. And I'll chat to you guys soon. Merry Christmas. Have a great day.
Mm-hmm.